10-Minute Murder contains depictions of violence that some listeners may find disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome to the brief and bingeable true crime podcast, 10-Minute Murder. I'm Joe, and thanks for being here. Today we're talking about another incel murderer. A while back, you heard about Alec Manassian, an incel that used a rental truck to intentionally run over and murder people in Ontario, Canada, all because of his disdain for women and the fact that he couldn't find one that would sleep with him. Now, at the time, I thought this was a very isolated and uncommon situation. But after doing a lot of research, it's not. There have been a bunch of other assaults and murders at the hands of self-described incels, or the involuntary celibates. Today, the focus is on Scott Beierle. He shot up a Florida yoga studio. Scott Beierle, a military veteran that was honorably discharged despite being kicked out for unacceptable conduct with female soldiers, held 2 master's degrees, a bachelor's degree. He was a former English and social studies teacher in the Maryland school system before he moved to Florida, where he was a substitute teacher. He never stuck around anywhere for very long as a substitute because of inappropriate incidents, like one where he was fired after asking a female student if she was ticklish while touching her right below her bra line. He was also arrested a couple of times, once at an apartment complex pool close to the Florida State University campus. At the pool, a lady was laying out, soaking in the warm Florida sun. She was lying on her stomach when Beierle walked up, sat beside her, and told her that she had a nice butt. Then asked if he could rub sunscreen on it. Not sure why she would decline such a generous offer, but she did. Scott Beierle then introduced himself and said, "Nice to meet you," which seems kind of out of the sequence from the first part. He reached over, smacked her butt, grabbed it, and shook it before walking away. Another incident at the Sewanee Room, a popular FSU dining hall, led to police being called because Beierle was grabbing butts there too. 3 ladies, all wearing yoga pants. In both situations, the women there obviously were very freaked out, but they declined to press charges. Scott Beierle didn't quite blend into his surroundings. Well over 6 feet tall, 240 pounds at least, walking with a strange, exaggerated stride. He often wore shorts with long white socks pulled all the way up. People that knew him didn't really know him. His roommate said that he'd make inappropriate comments when female friends were over. It got to the point that no guests were left unattended while Beierle was around. His roommate said he was very weird and made everyone uncomfortable. We compared him to Ted Bundy, the way he lurked and followed girls. His roommate had no idea how close to reality that statement would be. Scott Beierle had something that so many other self-described incels had, and used often: a YouTube channel. Beierle would rant about various topics and videos he posted online, including his hatred of women, the Affordable Care Act, homophobic and racist comments, and even girls in middle school that he says mistreated him. Here's a sample of the hours and hours of content he uploaded to the world.
How you can give your phone number to somebody when you already have a boyfriend? How many times have you have what? Why did you give me your phone number then? I would like to think a 12-year-old would know better, but it's 2 females that I was working with. I was working at a call center with them, was interacting with both of them. I must have asked for the phone number of the one, and she gave it to me. And I tried to call her on several occasions. I couldn't get through, but she told me where she worked. I said, okay, I'll go say hi. I left a message. Can you tell so-and-so I stopped by? Next thing, I get a phone call from the police. Oh, what's going on with these girls? Like, why are you bothering me? Why is this a concern of yours? Again, this mentality, let's just run to the authorities when our feelings are hurt. I had committed no wrong. I was just trying to court this particular female. I'm just trying to hook up with this girl. Well, they've decided not to press charge. They've decided, really, have they? Well, thank them. I didn't ask what charges they could have pressed. What, for me being aggressive? Can I press charges against them being evasive? If you're going to press charges against a male characteristic, can I press charges against a female characteristic? I can't press charges for being evasive and being dishonest. Okay. There's another one. Made one date, didn't show up. Made another date one, didn't show up. Kept making excuses. Said, I could have ripped her head off. But that was an intermediate. That's what I'm getting to ultimately. And I forgot about that for the longest time. When I discovered the path, something else, something of interest, a passion that I pursued and could allow myself to selectively forget about unpleasant things, although there were always instances. Sometimes I was able to get even, sometimes not. I mean, legally get even. Again, the treachery, the treachery that a female is capable of when her sensibilities are offended, to me is astonishing, and why nobody else has emphasized it or addressed it. The lengths that they will go to, lying, exaggerating, they all saw the exact same actions out of me. Treachery at its most vile. I believe in karma. I believe in what comes around goes around, and those that engage in treachery ultimately will be the victims of it. Hopefully there's been justice in some comparable regard that they've been the recipients of.
So it's pretty evident that he's not in touch with reality. Months before his November 2018 shooting, he began planning the attack. 3 weeks before the shooting, he booked a hotel room he would use as his staging area. On Halloween, he went to Walmart and bought a yoga mat. 2 days later, wearing a fanny pack and carrying a black bag, Scott Beierle left all of his personal belongings, as well as the hotel room keys, inside the hotel room. With obviously no intention of going back, he intended to die that day. Carrying nearly 100 rounds of ammo and his new yoga mat with the wrapper still on it, he walked into the Tallahassee hot yoga studio, pretending to be a customer. He pulled out his debit card to pay for the $12 walk-in fee for the class. He was disappointed that only 11 students were signed up on the list to attend, and asked when the more crowded sessions were held. He walked out, only to come back in after the class had already started. With the class in the child's pose, it's on their knees, nose to the floor, and arms outstretched, the teacher told him to store his bags and shoes in a cubby outside the room. He rummaged through his bag, and he said, "But I have a question." He pulled out a set of earmuffs and put them on. Hearing protection like you'd use on the shooting range. Then out came the 9mm Glock pistol. He stood there for a moment, with a gun in his hand, as still as a statue, before pointing at the woman nearest to him. The teacher shouted, "What are you doing?" Before Beierle pulled the trigger. He kept firing, rapidly and wildly, shot after shot, without really targeting any one person. 2 women nearest to him fell quickly. Mara Binkley, a 21-year-old FSU senior who had recently joined a rally against gun violence at the state capitol, and Nancy Van Vessem, a Tallahassee medical doctor and a regular at the hot yoga studio. Neither survived. 13 shots later, Beierle paused. Class student Joshua Quick said he heard a click. Not knowing if he was out of ammo or the gun jammed, he grabbed the closest thing to him, a vacuum cleaner, and charged him. Joshua slammed the vacuum against the side of Beierle's head, but he didn't go down. Beierle turned and pistol whipped him to the floor. Joshua got to a broomstick and ran at him again, but caught an elbow that took him out. By this time, almost all of the women that could run away had left the studio. Only the dead and wounded were still there with Scott Beierle. One of the women heard him mumble something incoherent as he placed the pistol under his own chin and squeezed the trigger for the last time. Hours after learning of the attack, many members of the Incel community dubbed him Saint Yoga Cell, applauding his disgusting act at the yoga studio. The morning after, women from yoga studios all over the city unrolled their yoga mats on a street downtown to show their solidarity. Joshua Quick later had his law school expenses paid by FSU and was given a key to the city. In the attack, Scott Beierle killed 2 women and wounded 5 others. And that's today's 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. There's a lot more to the Beierle story. Red flags about the kind of person he was from early on. He was elected class vice president despite openly admiring Hitler and the Aryan nations. His campaign slogan was "Vote Beierle because we don't need no woman." And you'd think a guy with a couple master's degrees would have better grammar than that, but I guess not. His parents slept in their bedroom with their door locked whenever Scott was around. His family also thought that he could be the DC sniper when that was going on because he lived in the area at the time. Hey, if you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, make sure you do, and you won't miss any episodes in the future. If you enjoyed 10-Minute Murder, you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate you listening. Have a good night.